everyone to our Power Up Partner Towards Progress webinar. And again, this is part of our advocacy and webinars that we've had. This is week 4, and we thank you so much for coming. And I would hope that all of you who are jumping on right now, and I see the participants' numbers coming up really quick, if you could just let us know where you're from and what state you're from, and club if you'd like. And we again thank you. I'm Deb Strahanowski. I am the International President of the General Federation of Women's Clubs. And these webinars have been coming to us the last 4 weeks by our Legislation Public Policy Committee, along with our programs manager, Darrell Jones. And I must say they have done an excellent job. And I know that our last part of our series, part 2, will be just as successful as the ones that we had in the first 3 weeks. So I see we've got a lot of people coming in. I see some from my own good old state of Illinois, Mississippi. Keep on coming. We love to have you. And those joining me on the screen right now, who you will hear from in a few minutes, are all of our wonderful affiliate organizations. I know many of you know how important our affiliate organizations are to us, and you will get some great information to bring back to your clubs, I'm sure, this evening. And we hope to see many of them, if not all, at our upcoming 2023 GFWC annual convention in Louisville, Kentucky. So at this point, I am going to introduce to you Juliet Casper, who is the chairman of the Legislation Public Policy Committee. And Juliet, how are you this evening? Isn't this exciting to have week number 4 coming up?
I'm great, and it is very exciting to be able to showcase our affiliates tonight and for the next 2 Thursdays, to be able to have a chance to hear what their advocacy efforts are, what their priorities are, and how we can help them is going to be a wonderful, wonderful thing.
That's great.
We're really excited. Darrell, do you think we're ready to begin? Do you think most people have joined?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and jump in.
Okay, well, as Madam President said, I'm Juliet Casper, and I'm serving as the chair of the Legislation Public Policy Committee. I live in Myrtle Beach area, South Carolina, a little town called Little River, and I represent the southern region. And as many of you know, if you've tuned into the other webinars, there is a representative from every region in GFWC, and we are here to help you with your advocacy efforts on the local, state, and national level. And please feel free to comment in the chat tonight if you have done any work with any of these affiliates tonight. We would like you to post any questions you have for the affiliates on the question and answer board. Each affiliate will speak, and we'll do a couple questions at the end of their session, and then we'll move to the next affiliate. And then at the end, if we have some time, we'll wrap up and go back to some of the questions we may not have had time to answer. So feel free to put your questions in the Q&A board. And you know, this is being recorded so that you can go back and watch this again. By registering, you're going to get a link in your email next week that will allow you to immediately review this session tonight. And at the end of all 6 sessions, then we'll make that available to all the other members of GFWC. So we thank you so much for registering. And now I'm going to turn it over to Darrell Jones, our GFWC Programs Manager, to kick this off and introduce our speakers tonight.
Thanks, Juliet. So hello, everybody. Hello again. As you can see tonight, your screen is a lot more packed than normal. And the folks that you guys are looking at are our partners toward progress, hence the title. So we are excited to have them here today. Today, we're going to start with Shot at Life. We'll move on to Hope for Justice, and then end with Canine Companions. So those are the 3 affiliates that will be presenting to you tonight. We hope that you will continue to come back to hear from the remaining affiliates, but I won't hold you too long. To start with, you will hear from a GFWC champion for Shot at Life, and her name is Lori Harding. So I will hand it over to you, Lori.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and given the opportunity to kick off this section. I am a Utah champion for Shot at Life. I'm also a GFWC member through the Murray Civic Guild here in Salt Lake City, Utah. We come from a historic time in Utah where the different clubs that we have go as far back as you can see. So I love GFWC. I love how we have so many different affiliates. And what I've been asked to kind of briefly go over today is how do you join as a champion and how do you get more information? So in the chat, I put a wonderful web link that you can click on now and pull up the history and some additional information about our work at Shot at Life. I have been a champion with Shot at Life for as long as I can remember. I've made great friends, both in GFWC across the nation and locally. It's easy to join. It's easy to participate, and they have a number of different levels where you can give of your time, give of your talents, give of your money, and even host fun parties where your friends can come over and you can do what we call activities to either raise funds so we can further the movement, or where you can call your members of Congress or write your members of Congress. It's amazing how just 5-10 minutes can make such a huge difference. So you see shotatlife.org is where you'll want to go. And again, I'm Lori Harding. I'm in the directory. You can reach out to me anytime if you have any questions, but I encourage everyone across the nation and all, even internationally, that want to get more involved with Shot at Life to give it a try and to reach out and get more information. Thank you for allowing us to visit you tonight.
Thank you, Lori. And thank you. I see some of our champions in the chat, so it's great to see you all. Thanks to GFWC for allowing myself and Lindsay to come here tonight and give you a few minutes. So I know I talk a little fast, so if we breeze by something, just know that we're always available. And we'll actually show you our emails. So if you do join, oh, I'm sorry, they aren't on this one, my apologies. So myself and Lindsay are the ones who you can see here today. We're the ones that run the grassroots program. Lindsay really takes the lead on all of our champion work. So if you come to train with Shot at Life, we try to make it as easy as possible. Like Lori said, if you have 5 minutes or 5 hours, we really try to make the most of your time and make it as easy as possible. So these are the names you'll see in those emails. And Lindsay and I are always a resource for you moving forward if you have questions about any of this. So if you aren't aware of Shot at Life or you haven't heard of us, I know a lot of you have done either get a shot, give a shot, or have been involved in different ways. But we are a grassroots advocacy campaign through the United Nations Foundation. And really, we champion global childhood immunization. So we really believe that children everywhere, no matter where you live, should really have the same access to global health and immunizations as kids everywhere. So that's our main goal. So we do this a lot of different ways. Obviously, our education and making sure that folks are aware of the issue and want to make sure they have all the information about the different alliances and the different immunization programs, the different partners. So educating the public is a big part of what we do, but really the part that makes the most impact on the causes that we care about is our advocacy and our partnerships. So partnerships through groups like GFWC give us access to great advocates like you that are all over the country. And then really those advocacy moves, whether it's the lower lift items like writing an email or doing a phone call, all the way up to meeting with your congressional offices, that advocacy is really the main part of Shot at Life and what we do. So as we go into our 10th, or as we're finishing up our 10th year, a little bit of the campaign, these are the top diseases that we focus on. There were, when we were founded, the biggest killers of kids under 5. So we really wanted to make sure we were addressing that. So these diseases here are what we work on and really try to, we work in many areas, but these are the core focuses. So measles, polio, diarrheal disease, and pneumonia. And of course, the problem and why we're here is really that there are so many kids that don't have access to these life-saving vaccines. 1 in 5 children around the world, due to a lot of things. You can see here, social geographic exclusion, insufficient resources, weak health systems. Sometimes it could be as simple as there's not enough gas in, the Boda Boda motorcycle to get to both clinics, and you have to pick one. So there are a lot of different hurdles that get in the way of that access. And that's, a big problem that we're here to work on. You can also see specifically the millions of deaths from preventable causes that also visualizes some of those as well. So to end on a less negative note, we know the problem, and I'm going to turn to my colleague Lindsay to talk about the solution.
Thanks, Rebecca. So the good news is we do have a solution, and that solution is all about access. Access to vaccines has grown significantly in the last decade, and we know that they are one of the most cost-effective ways to save the lives of children around the world. And vaccines currently help save 4 million children from preventable diseases every single year. And so this graph is just a good reminder of that and showing our progress with childhood mortality. From 1990 to 2019, childhood mortality for kids under 5 has dropped in half, which is such significant progress. And now we know with COVID-19 and everything going on that some of this progress has been affected. So it's a really important time to fight back and ensure that we can save the lives of children because we do have the tools available. And vaccines are the solution to lowering preventable deaths among children. And we need to make sure that they're more affordable and accessible to communities all around the world. So this is where our partners really step in to help. Shot at Life itself does not administer vaccines anywhere in the world, but we do work closely with our partners. These include the World Health Organization, UNICEF, Gavi the Vaccine Alliance, the CDC, and USAID. And these partners expand access to vaccines in different ways. Each partner has a different role to play in getting a vaccine from the lab to actually children and families in the hardest to reach corners of the planet. So this is where Shot at Life steps in, building on the legacy of the UN Foundation and its work in global health. So we work with the American public, members of US Congress, and civil society partners to expand access to vaccines. So we achieve this goal in multiple ways. Like Rebecca mentioned, we do some fundraising, which GFWC is always such a great partner for. And then a lot of the bulk of the work we do is with advocacy and having volunteers across the country speak to their members of Congress about the importance of funding programs through our partners. And so in 2021, the US allocated around $580 million towards global vaccination programs. And we know that our advocates can make a real difference and a real impact. Since Shot at Life's inception over 10 years ago, we have seen an estimated $225 million increase for global childhood immunization spending in the US federal budget. And while this has been done in tandem with many partners, our advocates at Shot at Life have made a real difference. And you can see some of these numbers on the screen. Over 200,000 engagements with policymakers, leading to $5 billion in spending for the programs that we advocate for. So our advocates are making a difference, supporting these programs, and directly money is going to the causes that we care about. So we ask you as great GFWC partners to join us for a training. We have a lot of GFWC champions who throughout the years have joined us for meetings and phone calls and in-person summits in DC. And that all kind of starts by joining us for a training to learn a little more about Shot at Life and what we do and how you can get involved. Spring is a really, really great time to get involved because we have an advocacy push coming up at the end of March into April, and we will provide you all the tools and resources that you need to advocate. So at any time, you can sign up for a training at shotatlife.org/training. It only takes about 45 minutes, and if none of them work for your schedule, we will always be able to send you a recording. And our last ask before we turn it over is if maybe advocacy, you don't have a lot of time in your schedule to fit this in, one really simple ask that anyone can do, no matter who you are, where you live, is to sign our petition. You can scan the QR code on the screen, or you can always go to shotatlife.org/petition, and you fill in your information and it will ask your members of Congress to support funding for our partners and ensure that children everywhere can have a shot at a healthy life. So I'll leave this up on the screen to give you a chance to fill out that petition and then see if we have any questions. Thank you so much for having us.
I do see one from Becky Wright. Hi, Becky. Do you anticipate working with the GFWC Legislative Action Center for a combined advocacy effort? We absolutely do this. GFWC has been great about helping with this. Darrell, for year after year, has helped me get this as part of that. And last activation, when it went through the Action Center, we received more signatures from GFWC as a group than any other group, actually. So that was a huge help. We look forward to doing that again in our next activation, which will go from March 20th through the end of April, which is World Immunization Week. So yes, we will definitely be getting our new FY24 petitions out through that action alert. We will definitely follow up with GFWC about it, but they've been great supporters in the past of making sure you all get access to that petition.
We do have one question on the question and answer board, and it comes from Martha, and she asked, what congressional committees handle the vaccine funding?
So while there are like the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and different global committees, the bulk of the work we do is with appropriators. So they're the folks, if you don't work in the legislature, I mean, most people might, but the appropriators are the folks that are working on the budget every single year. So there are many subcommittees that feed into that with some of our global health issues, depending on if, like, for instance, our CDC funding is a little different from the polio funding. But generally, they all fall under the umbrella of appropriations and those committees. So every year, honestly, that underlines why every single year we have to do this, because every year there's a new budget. So we have to keep plugging away to make sure that those numbers are met. And in the past, we've been successful where other programs were getting slashed, we were able to maintain, or when other programs were maintained, we were able to get those increases that Lindsay mentioned. But great question. Thank you.
Very good question. And if anyone wants to know more about the appropriations process, we do cover that in a newsletter on the legislation and public policy part of the GFWC website. So check that out. And one more question for you before we move to the next affiliate. It comes from Elizabeth. Do you work with the Rotary clubs who do so much for polio funding worldwide?
Great question, Elizabeth. Rotary has done so much wonderful work on polio, so I'm glad that you mentioned that. A lot of our work with Rotary tends to not be on the grassroots side, but what we do is on, for instance, on our direct lobby side, UN Foundation works with many partners that are in the global health space, including I don't know, what are some other examples, Lindsay? Some other groups, basically all of the folks. Last time I think we had 20 people that sign on to these letters. So when we have our senators sign on to a dear colleague in support of polio letter, for instance, we're making sure that they are included in those conversations. We don't come up with our asks, our fiscal year asks every year. So like our FY24s, we don't come up with that on our own in a silo. We work with all of our global health partners, including Rotary and including places like, I want to say One Results, different groups that we work with on the back end to make sure that we're all having a coordinated effort. So while one may focus more on polio or on childhood diseases or on poverty, we all work together to make sure we have a cohesive ask so that we're really helping each other with the same numbers when we go to the congressional offices versus, oh, well, this group asked for this and this group asked for this. We really do a lot of coordinating on the back end, and Rotary is a huge, huge part of that effort so that we're always on the same page in those meetings.
Thank you.
Great question.
Oh, sorry, Juliet. If you guys have any more questions for Shot at Life, please do put them in the Q&A. We will have a second question and answer portion for all affiliates at the end if we do have time. So if you do have questions that we might have the time to get back to at the end, please do continue to put those questions in the chat and we may get back to it. But thank you guys so much at Shot at Life. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing our members continuing to work with you to forward your advocacy efforts.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Up next, we have Hope for Justice, and representing them is their Partnership Development Manager, Rachel Mice.
Thanks so much, Jarrell. Hi, everyone. As of last year, Hope for Justice was your newest affiliate partner. I may have met some of you at the conference, or we've had some communication over the past few months. I will just do a disclaimer. At that point, I had a different last name. I got married in the fall, so I am the same person, just a new last name. So just a heads up for that. I decided for this opportunity, since we are so new, to just share a video with you guys, just to give a quick overview of who Hope for Justice is, and then I can walk you through some of our advocacy and share a few stories with you. So I will share my screen and play a video.
Slavery. a term that conjures images of some of the darkest practices in human history, stripping a human being of their freedom and their dignity in the name of greed and profit.
People don't feel that slavery actually still exists. However, we know differently that people are being forced to do unspeakable acts for profit. It's plain to see that slavery hasn't ended. It's just evolved into something completely different.
Right now, it's estimated that there are over 40 million victims of modern-day slavery. 1 in every 4 victims are children. Whether it's domestic servitude, forced labor, or sexual exploitation, traffickers treat people like commodities and transport them all over the world to be used or to be sold for profit. It's clear that slavery affects the lives of millions across the world. So, in 2008, a team of people founded Hope for Justice to do just that. Hope for Justice has built a professional and transformational response to the issue of modern-day slavery. Wherever slavery exists, Hope for Justice is committed to ending it once and for all. Specialist teams identify victims of sex trafficking, forced labor, and domestic servitude through investigative and community outreach work. We work alongside the police and other agencies to build bridges of trust that help people find their freedom and get them the support they need.
We stand alongside survivors of human trafficking as they walk the path to freedom and independence.
The final stage to abolishing slavery for good in our world depends on the world around us. Reforming society to actively fight against those who wish to exploit others and protect those who are vulnerable to traffickers.
We are meeting with government entities all around the world to help nations improve their legislation surrounding modern slavery and exploitation. As for the rest of society, Hope for Justice continues to raise awareness and train people to spot the signs of modern slavery. With all these proven strategies working together, we will see the end to this tragedy. We will continue to see parents reunited with their loved ones, children given the right to grow up in a safe and nurturing environment, and men and women restored to have hope for their future. Our team here at Hope for Justice are changing lives every day. Our advocates and social workers use the wealth of experience to guide our survivors along every step of their journey towards restoration. Our trainers and program staff spend time directly engaging with communities to make a real difference. Our partnerships and communications teams who constantly innovate and refine the way in which we engage and inform our wider society. Every single one of them working together to see a world free from modern-day slavery and put human trafficking in the history books where it belongs.
As mentioned in the video, we are an organization that exists to end human trafficking and modern day slavery. We're a global nonprofit across 5 continents and 30 plus locations. I'm located in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where our US headquarters is based. In the video, it kind of walked through our whole mission and the steps in which we take that we are fighting this fight. You know, we heard of huge statistics of nearly 50 million people who are in some form of slavery. It generates $150 billion of illicit funds globally each year. And it could seem like a huge problem, which it is. And sometimes that makes you think, what can I do about it? But Hope for Justice is unique that we kind of come at it from a 360 approach with our 4 pillars of preventing exploitation, which is through education and community empowerment. We help families and vulnerable people protect themselves against traffickers and the deceptive methods that they use to control others. Our second pillar is rescuing victims. It's what it sounds like. Our investigators and outreach teams work with local law enforcement and other agencies to identify victims of modern day slavery and build bridges of trust with them and be able to get them safely out of exploitation. Our third pillar is restoring lives. We provide world-class survivor aftercare, both residential and non-residential. Our legal advocacy team and support ensures that the needs are met and give them the best chance for justice to be done for them. And our fourth pillar, which is reforming society, which is a big focus of tonight's webinar, our advocacy efforts, where we push the reforming aspect is training others on the front lines, from police, healthcare workers, charities, and many more, to spot the signs of modern slavery and to respond effectively. We work with governments and businesses to make this change happen. We believe reform is a process that involves initiating and strengthening legislation, policy, practices, standards, structures, beliefs, behavior. The only way in which we're going to put an end to this is by hitting it from every angle and getting the society to all join in the movement that this is wrong and that we need to put a stop from humans doing this to other humans. Through training, advocacy, and collaboration, we promote best practices, ensuring that knowledge is passed on and can continue to be developed from different organizations. Some of you may have received some information on one of the bills that we have going on, Trafficking Victims Protection Act. It is a reauthorization. We worked on the language of this bill. We led the efforts to bringing together other NGOs for advocacy and quick activation. It made it through the House, trying to get it to be through the Senate, but we're working to get that to be passed. Hope for Justice leads several roundtables on Capitol Hill. The first one that we organized was back in September. It was attended by 13 different NGOs and 9 congressional offices, U.S. Advisory Council, and the new Human Trafficking Programs Coordinator at the Department of Justice. So we are collaborating globally to put this in the history books, as our CEO said, where it belongs. And a few of our other efforts that we're looking to do this year from an advocacy standpoint, we have a new landmark legislation called the Trafficking Survivors Relief Act. It is legislation on which we have already been leading and have written amendments to. It will be reintroduced by Senator Blackburn from Tennessee in the near future. So that's one we're hoping to get through. And then just recently, we had an anti-trafficking in persons policy leader roundtable. We organized and led the second one of these. It was very successful, and it was just last week on the Hill. And it was great to get so many organizations fly in from around the country for this event to have these conversations. As my time is wrapping up, I just like to end with that Hope for Justice's vision is to live in a world free from slavery. And every step of the journey towards achieving this ambition is empowered by a global movement of supporters, campaigners, donors, fundraisers, and what we like to call freedom bringers. We believe that freedom is worth the fight and everyone deserves to have their freedom. And that is the legacy that we want to leave. If I can, I just want to show you this one image that we have. Well, I don't think it'll pull up, but for those of you who have seen it before, we have a freedom wall in every single one of our offices, and they have locks that look like this. They're padlocks that are unlocked, but not this one. Other ones have a name and a year on it. And each one of these locks represents a survivor of human trafficking and the year that they were rescued. And we continue to do this to have those names filled, walls upon walls, because each one is a life and every life matters. So I thank you. I know it's a heavy topic, but it's one that needs to be talked about. And just by you sitting here listening to me is the first step of being able to do something about it.
Thank you, Rachel. We have a couple questions for you. First off, our members would be interested in getting the bill numbers for those bills that you mentioned. So if you have those tonight, put them in the chat. If you don't have them tonight, just shoot me an email and I'll make sure that we get this out to all of the club state presidents and directors of junior clubs. Another question is, your training available to the club members, the advocacy training that you offer? Is there a way for our members to participate in that?
Yes, so that is something that I've been working with certain states and clubs this past year, as we're finding the best way for all members to be trained. We have online learning academy where you can do it independently, or I have been working with Florida and North Carolina, and I will be doing webinars of those trainings to spot the signs. So I would love to work with your clubs and share that information with you. I'll do it over and over and over again. So I can share my information, but we have several training options for everybody.
And I have one kind of timely question. Sunday is the Super Bowl, and most people think football, but I think your organization probably thinks of trafficking victims. Are there anything that you all are working on there in Glendale, Arizona, to identify these possible victims?
So regarding the Super Bowl and all of the conversations around it, obviously it's a huge event. There's a lot of people that come into town, and sometimes people think that human trafficking spikes during these times, right? After talking with our investigators, I learned it's a bit of a myth that it brings in the traffickers. They're already there, which is a sad reality, is that they are where the people are. Because there's so many tourists, so many people coming into town, it does get heightened. So the more spot the signs training we can do, the more protection of yourself trainings we can do, is the best way to combat that, and combat it from anytime, whether it's your backyard, whether it's a big event, whether it's online with our kids. The traffickers go where the people are, is what it comes down to.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again, Rachel. And what I didn't mention earlier is that Hope for Justice is our newest affiliate organization. So we are excited to be working with you guys on this issue and to activate our members.
Thank you. We're very excited, and love to continue to meet all of you and build that partnership.
Thanks again. And our last presentation will come from Canine Companions. And our first introduced a familiar face. You guys have seen Nancy around for years, and it's a joy working with her every day. We love hearing from her, and she will introduce their presenter for today. So I'll turn it over to Nancy Murray, who is the events manager for Canine Companions.
Thanks, Darrell, and thank you all for having us and for bringing in the affiliates to talk about advocacy. And your support is helping us do more to help people, give them freedom of health, of life, independence, and so much more. So thank you, and hope to see a lot of you at convention this year, and hopefully at the service project. So I am delighted to be able to introduce Wallace Brosman. She is the Communications and Advocacy Coordinator at Canine Companions, but not only is she staff, but she is a 3-time graduate and currently has her service dog, Renata, who is the sweetest thing and is a best friend and huge help to Wallace. And so I'm going to pass it to you, Wallace, to talk about everything that we are doing in advocacy and how you as GFWC members can help us. So take it away, Wallace.
Thank you so much. I'm having a minor freak out of technology. So let me start out there. I want to thank you all for giving me your time, and I am working on sharing my screen so you can see my actual PowerPoint. Give me one moment, I appreciate it.
If you continue to have problems, Wallace, I do have the PowerPoint open on my screen so I can share.
I am opening it right now because it crashed, as things do when you're in the middle of a presentation, of course. I will start out by telling you a little bit about who I am. As Nancy mentioned, I am a 3-time graduate of Canine Companions program, as well as a staff member since 2009. And I am really glad to be here to talk to you about advocacy, which is something that I am incredibly passionate about for many reasons, including personal ones. Can we all see that now? Nancy, can you see my PowerPoint
Yep.
slide?
Yep.
Great. So after that chaotic introduction there, let me tell you a little bit about why Canine Companions works with GFWC and what it is that we do at Canine Companions. I don't have a flashy video, but I do have puppies. There will be puppies in the slideshow, I hope. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what we do. I know I wanted to make sure, I believe I do have a poll at this juncture. If Darrell can help me, I'm curious to know how many people have actually heard of Canine Companions. You want to select that?
So the question is, how familiar are you with Canine Companions? And you can choose very familiar, somewhat familiar, I've heard of the organization, or not familiar at all. We're at about 81%, so get those votes in. We'll close it soon. All right, and I'll share the results. And as you can see, 60% of the attendees today are very familiar with Canine Companions. 22% are somewhat familiar. 16% have heard of the organization, and 2% are not familiar at all.
Well, that's great news. It makes my job a little easier that you guys know who we are and what we do. So I'm actually going to bring up, before we start, so that we have something to think about as we go through the presentation and discussion of advocacy for Canine Companions. We have a second poll question that I'm curious to see, since you guys come from all corners of the country.
So how often do you encounter out of control dogs in places that pets are not permitted? Daily, weekly, monthly? I have never encountered this, or I don't know if I've encountered this. Get those votes in. We're at about 60%. All right, I will share these results. So 4% said daily, 2% weekly, 20% monthly, 66% of attendees said that they have never encountered this, and 9% said they don't know if they've encountered this.
Well, those are actually very shocking results to me as a person with a disability who relies on a service dog, because my experience is a bit different. And I hope I'll open your eyes a little bit to, unfortunately, perhaps seeing the world through the same eyes as a service dog user and understanding why it's important to advocate and amplify the voice of Canine Companions. So Canine Companions, we actually created the concept of the service dog for people with physical disabilities in 1975. And our mission is to provide expertly trained service dogs and a lifetime of follow-up services entirely free of charge. We serve adults, children, and veterans with disabilities, as well as professionals who work in healthcare, criminal justice, and educational settings. So before I get into the advocacy wins, I would like to say that our advocacy program is small but mighty, and we need your help to make it larger. Right now, I am the sort of person putting it all into practice, and we've had some big wins despite our small but mighty team here. So we, the Canine Companions, were able to provide an organization position and comments and suggested changes to the Air Carrier Access Act. Now, this is a really big deal. It's a federal bill that impacts our clients and service dog users directly. So previously, the Air Carrier Access Act, which governs air travel, permitted what they called service animals or assistive animals. And so this included service dogs, like what we provide, who know tasks to help with the person with a disability, and emotional support animals, which are pet dogs that provide comfort for people. And they were permitting both these very different categories of working dogs to be on a plane with their handler. Unfortunately, it led to a lot of issues where were out of control animals on flights. There were a lot of altercations between legitimate trained service dogs and untrained or poorly trained dogs. And Canine Companions was really pleased to be brought onto the Air Carrier Access Committee on this issue. And we utilized our grassroots advocacy efforts to amplify our voice and our position that it really was best to realign the Air Carrier Access Act with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so we did help to get that passed. And I'm proud to say that our small but mighty team did something mighty but not small. The next piece that we've done historically, there's the Pause Veterans Therapy Act, sometimes called the Pause Act. And this took over a decade to pass, and Canine Companions was there every step of the way. We helped craft the bill. We received all kinds of media access. The young man that's in the picture on the right there joined us on Capitol Hill to talk about his experience as a veteran using a service dog. And essentially, this bill was finally able to pass last year, allowing the Department of Veterans Affairs to actually treat service dogs as the equivalent of prosthetic devices. So that was a great win, and we couldn't have done it without our grassroots advocates as well. We had 50,000 signatures come in on our petition to support the changes and passing of this legislation. Now, Canine Companions is a national organization. We have 6 training centers in Northern California, Southern California, Texas, Ohio, Florida, and New York. We do operate our advocacy efforts in every state. We do have a presence in every state. So we do have graduates in every state. So it's important to us to look on a state level for specific bills, because the laws and regulations around service animals are actually different from state to state. Of course, you have the Americans with Disabilities Act, but we want to get down and make sure that we are supporting people with service dogs as best we can in the communities in which they live. So last year, we finally got the signature from Gavin Newsom to pass California AB 468, which is a bill that is crafted to reduce fraudulent emotional support animals in public and provide guidelines for mental health practitioners on when and how they can prescribe an emotional support dog. This is really important because we have a really big problem, as I will show you briefly with some stats, with poorly trained or fraudulent service and emotional support dogs in the United States. Just wrapped up at the end of last year, a pretty monumental, first of its kind white paper on the impact of poorly trained service dogs. And I want to tell you a little bit more about that because it's important to advocate for Canine Companions, and I'd love to tell you why. So this data that you can see on the screen was collected from a survey of more than 1,500 service and service dog handlers in 3 different continents. So we went through our governing body, that's Assistance Dogs International, and sent this out to over 60 different organizations. There are some really staggering numbers here. When you think about what you, as my audience here, said, is that the vast majority of you had never encountered an out of control dog. Conversely, 93.2% of those that we surveyed, of those 1,500 individuals, have encountered poorly trained service dogs and pet dogs in places where pets aren't allowed. It's really important to recognize that this is a problem because dogs are dogs. And while service dogs are bred and trained to be very professional, ignore other dogs, to never be aggressive, these untrained dogs are having a significant impact on the lives of people with disabilities who are relying on task trained dogs. You can see here that 80% feel that this issue of poorly trained service dogs have negatively impacted independence and quality of life. Most importantly to me, as someone with a disability who uses a service dog, is that nearly 100 handlers needed to permanently retire their service dog or limit outings due to dog attacks. So the reason why I'm asking you as canine companions to become an advocate is because my second service dog named Mork was actually attacked 10 times in our partnership and had to be retired at the age of just before 5. And he was a bilingual and amazing service dog. And I would love to have had many more years with him, but unfortunately I couldn't. So how can you help as a GFWC club member? It's really about becoming an advocate for canine companions. We do have a grassroots advocacy program. And while it is, still picking up speed every single day, we need more advocates to amplify our voice to help us in whatever way you are comfortable as an advocate, whether you have 1 minute or you have 8 hours in a single day, or whether you want to provide your input, to bills every time we send out a request for help would be great. So how do you get there? It's pretty easy. In order to register for our grassroots advocacy initiative, you can visit canine.org/advocate. And then as an advocate, there are some important pieces that you gain as one of our volunteer advocates, but you also help us by amplifying our voice on important issues that impact our clients and community. So all people who utilize service dogs. You're able to make connections with local and state legislators to help us make those connections in the places where our presence is not quite as robust. However, not everyone has all the time to go and meet their legislators. So we do offer a variety of roles, from signing a petition to writing a letter to your legislators to providing testimony on the floor, whether it's the state Congress or the federal Congress. What you gain as an advocate are, first of all, exclusive Canine Companions webinars and some information and training and guidance in these issues that are affecting our population. And you get the opportunity to claim yourself as a volunteer advocate, which is a really big deal. Canine Companions is the leading organization for service dogs in the country, and being part of our voice is a big privilege for me personally as an advocate and a staff member. So what we have coming up in 2023 includes monthly emails when we need help to make change. This happens almost every month. We come across state and federal legislation that excludes service animals or is confusing wording and essentially putting a bill out there that's going to end up damaging the community. We also, of course, need help supporting things that Canine Companions comes up with to bring those up in the legislation to get them on the bills, on the desks of the governors and congressmen and women. So coming up in April, we have our first webinar of the year is actually going to be about the myths and facts surrounding service dogs. It covers access rights, service dog frauds, and laws and guidelines. And I actually will be leading this presentation that is really informative and has a lot of information that you can access right at your fingertips. We also have National Service Dog Month in September. What we like to do in National Service Dog Month is not only celebrate the great work of service dogs, but we also want to get the word out there. And that's where affiliates like GFWC can help Canine Companions. Your might helps us be mightier and can get out there and spread the word about National Service Dog Month, service dog fraud, the importance of this issue to our communities, whether you encounter this or not in your daily lives. The presence of fraudulent service dogs is real, and the impact is very tangible in our communities. Lastly, we will provide you with tools so that you can educate yourself and then take that to educate others that you know, so that we can make a bigger impact to protect legitimate service dogs like the 3 that I've had from Canine Companions. So again, I invite you to register to become an advocate. At that point, you will start receiving invitations to our webinars and any other events or special opportunities that we offer our advocates. And at this time, I would love to answer some questions, and thank you again for your time.
Wallace, that was great. Great presentation. And obviously our members need to learn some more about these misbehaving dogs that are attacking service dogs. How are you looking to approach that issue? Are there partnerships with, shelters and dog training places?
That's a really great question. So a lot of what we do is through education, and some of that comes from working with our sort of partner organizations. So for example, Guide Dogs for the Blind. If you haven't heard of it, it's one of the leading guide dog training schools in the United States. And we consider them to be sort of a sister organization. And we band together with them to work on various aspects of advocacy for our organization. As far as local shelters and dog trainers, we are more focused on getting a broader education to people where it applies, that a dog trainer or perhaps someone writing a letter for an emotional support animal come in. The legislation and the guidelines that we help create will be brought in front of those people in a way that helps us limit their accidental or intentional use of fraud in that case.
Education is always key. We have some members that have asked in the chat and on the question and answer board if you could share the information about your April webinar so that we can share that with GFWC and really promote our members signing up for that.
Yes, so the invitation will actually go out in one of our e-news emails, but what I can certainly do is have you guys share this canine.org/advocate with your members, because this is the first step. If I were to just give you the access to the webinar, then you would have no additional access to webinars. So I would love if you could share that link right there, and it's easy. It's just like a 3-second form and you're in, you're one of us.
We will definitely share this with our members and put it in our next newsletter that comes from legislation and public policy. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have all of these wonderful websites that our affiliates have given tonight in upcoming news and notes. Any way we can share it, right, Dorel?
Definitely. We'll grab all these things from the chat and hopefully share them out with you guys. And we'd love for you guys, the affiliates, to send that to us so that we can promote it with any text that you guys want to, extra text that you guys want to send along with that. But thank you again, Wallace and Nancy. That was a great presentation, and we're looking forward to activating our members behind that issue.
Thank you all.
Before we go, we do want to give you guys one more chance to ask some questions to all of the affiliates. There is a chance to ask any questions that you didn't get the chance to get in. So for any of the 3 that are on the chat today, please feel free to get those in, and we will try to get those last-minute questions answered.
One question, Dorel, is about whether the affiliates can provide some advance notice of legislation that's coming up. So that we can get a good start on educating our members. And it sounds like each of our organizations tonight do have ways that we can receive newsletters from them, and that may be the best way, but I'll let the affiliates answer.
We at Canine Companions, part of this is that we will email you to let you know that things are coming up, that we need your help on an issue. So again, become an advocate and you'll be, right there with the information.
One of the other questions is about whether these presentations can be shared with members. We are recording tonight's presentation, so all of the attendees will get the recording next week, and then all 6 sessions once they are completed, they will be available for any member of GFWC to access. And so, yes, tonight's presentation could be shared at a club meeting, which would be fantastic.
Yes, I think that would be great to definitely share these at a club meeting. I think a good question is, are you all also available for webinars if clubs put in a request?
Absolutely. And depending on where the club is, we might be able to have a staff member or one of our official advocates come and present in person too.
Same with us. One of our best ways is to be able to share the awareness, the information, spot the signs. So if anyone is interested, whether it's pulling together several clubs or individual ones, we are all for that. So I'll put my information in the chat. I didn't quite get that before the next presentation, so I'll do that as well.
And same for Shot at Life. I will put in the chat our general champions at shotatlife.org, which you can reach out to at any time if you want an individualized training for your club or anything else. We're happy to work with you on that.
Well, Darrell, I don't see any more questions. I want to thank all of our speakers tonight for sharing this important information with us and helping us help you by advocating for the bills as they come up before Congress. And I like that we also are looking at states. That's one of the things we're hoping our members will really get involved in, is on the state level as well. And so, you know, we already had one webinar that talked all about how our Legislative Action Center can help you on the state level. So attendees, you know that each week you're just learning more and more about what you can do and the power of GFWC's Legislative Action Center. Next week, please register. We'll have some more affiliates speaking. Next week, we'll have Heifer International and UNICEF. And then the last webinar, which will be February 25th, will feature March of Dimes and St. Jude. And again, I want to thank Madam President and Darrell Jones and Jolie Frankfurt for your support of this wonderful webinar series, The Power of You.
Well, and I would like to thank again, on behalf of all the members of GFWC, thank you, Shot at Life. You've been with us for a long time. Canine Companions, I think when I was a young junior, I remember Canine Companions. And welcome, Hope for Justice. We appreciate you all, but I am going to do a little commercial. You heard Nancy talk about our service project at our upcoming convention. It will be for Canine Companions, and we will be making puppy blankets. And if you are unable to attend our convention, you can still participate in our service project. Just follow the link through the registration, and we would greatly appreciate your help in helping this wonderful organization and every affiliate organization we have in our wonderful organization, the General Federation of Women's Clubs. So with that, I think we can sign off, right, everyone? All right, bye-bye. Thank you again.
Thank you guys for joining.